Hi, this is Phil Cooke, and this is a short episode in the podcast, but it's a real word for creative leaders. If you're leading a creative team, and it's also, I guess it could be a word for young creatives, people who are relatively new to the business. I spoke in Dallas recently at the Modern Church Leader Conference. It's a terrific conference designed to help church creative people and leadership people, financial people. It was an excellent conference. And I spoke on how to lead creative teams. And afterwards, I had a long list of people. I mean, it was a standing room only crowd. It was really fun. And I had a girl come up to me. She was the leader of a creative team at a church. And she said, I've got a problem. I need some advice. She said, I have a young girl who's a graphic designer. She's super talented. And we hired her. But she has this mistaken belief that everything she does should not be changed. The pastor shouldn't change it. She, as the leader of the team, shouldn't change it. This graphic designer feels like what she does is good enough and it's perfect and doesn't need any changing. And she's always arguing and pushing back about any changes I suggest. She said, what in the world do I do? It was a quite an interesting dilemma, and I thought worth sharing with you guys what some of the things we discussed. And one of the things I always want to remind creative people is that when you're being paid for your creativity, you're working in the service of someone else. So whether it's a church that pays you or a business or an ad agency or a studio, whoever's paying you, you're working in their service. So even though they want your creativity, and I'm sure they value your creativity, but the fact is, they're going to want to make changes in it. They know they know how it's going to be used. They know more about the audience. They will see things that you may not see. Now, it took me a long time. When I was in my 20s as a creative person, when I was writing and directing and producing video things, people, clients would change my work and, oh man, it stung. I hated it. Or they'd want me to change a script or something. And I hated it. But it took me a long time to finally realize, you know what? They're paying me. They're paying me. They're hiring me for my vision, for my creativity, for my innovation, and my ideas. However, they want to have a say in how those ideas are implemented. So they're going to make those changes from time to time. It reminds me of a great quote, one of the greatest quotes I've ever read from Ron Shelton, who directed Tin Cup. He directed Bull Durham. He directed some really, really great films. And he had an excellent quote. I wrote it on my blog a long time ago, and I just wanted to read it right here. He said, I think people are naive about the movie business. The movie business is no different than any artistic medium in the history of the world. Pope Julius II was screaming at Michelangelo for 4 years. Velázquez painted for Philip II, and the guy was an inbred lunatic. My models for screenwriting and for directing are the court painters of Europe. I need the king's money to criticize the king. How can I get it without getting my head cut off? That is the model. That's the model. If you're working in business, if you're working for a nonprofit, even for a church, that's the model you should be thinking about. In the 15th century, a patron would come to a painter and say, I'd like to pay you to paint something really significant. I don't care what style it is, but I have one request. Can you put my family in the background? And you know what the great painters would say? Absolutely, no problem. You know what the terrible painters would say? I can't do that because it will compromise my artistic vision. I mean, Kathleen and I were walking around in the Prado, the great museum in Madrid, a number of years ago. And painting after painting after painting, you see examples of somebody who does a great painting. One guy painted the crucifixion. He was hired by a guy to paint the crucifixion. But then the sponsor of the painting, the guy that paid him to do it, wanted the painter to put him in the foreground of the picture. And he did. And guess what? It's hanging in one of the greatest museums in the world today. So the truth is, if you're a great creative, I don't care what area you're in, graphic design, video, film, whatever, you need to learn to adapt to a business culture that really has gone on since the beginning of the world. Just because you're creative doesn't mean you're an artist unfettered and you can do anything you want. Now, if you want that kind of life, I would encourage you to, do watercolors on your back porch. Or write the great American novel just for yourself. Then you can do anything you want. And good luck selling that. If you can, great. If not, no problem. But otherwise, understand that creativity is a collaborative business. It's collaborative. Whether it's advertising and you need to work with an ad agency and a client, whether it's a church and you're working with a pastor and a creative team, whether it's a nonprofit and you're using your creativity to raise money for the cause, whatever it may be, understand that you're working in a collaborative environment and you need to honor that because it's a great thing. I mean, I almost remember in my early 30s when it dawned on me a couple times a client had made some changes in my work. And once I calmed down, I was upset at first, obviously. But once I calmed down, I realized, you know what? They're right. Those changes are making it better. Let me tell you, that completely changed the way I looked at it. Now, obviously, sometimes a client's changes or your team leader's changes may not make it better, but they're still paying you for your work. So I just would encourage you, understand how to use your creativity. If you're going to get it out there, if you're going to get people to see it, it doesn't have to be pure. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be unblemished with changes from a boss or a client. It just needs to get out there. So man up, mature, and get, more experienced people will tell you that, yeah, people make changes all the time. I've done this for a long, long time, longer than some of you have been alive. And I'll tell you, I rarely do anything without clients asking for a change. And I do it happily. I'm thrilled to do it. That's maturity. That's creative maturity. So think about that in your creative life. As you lead your team, understand it's okay for you to make changes. It's okay. Hopefully you'll make those things better. And it's okay for the boss or the pastor, the ministry leader, whoever, to make changes. Understand that's okay. So don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel guilty about helping adapt your creative team's work to make it more successful. And if you're a creative, particularly a younger creative, understand that's the process. That's the way the world works. That boss was selected. Chances are that boss was selected in that position because of their experience, because they knew the goals of that organization. They knew the audience they're trying to reach. So in that world, just never forget that you should be open to change, be open to adjustments, tweaks to your creative work, because that can make it so much better. It's the way the world works. And the earlier you adapt to that, and the earlier you lead your team and teach them to adapt to that, the better off you'll be and the greater work you'll do. And by the way, when it comes to creativity, if you haven't read my book, Ideas on a Deadline, How to Be Creative When the Clock is Ticking, you're making a big mistake. Let me tell you, it will amp up your creativity because, number one, it's not just about being creativity. It's about delivering when you need to deliver. And remember, you can't just hang out until a great idea hits you. We all have deadlines. I've lived my whole career working in broadcast television, and I have to deliver that show. I produced Super Bowl commercials, and I realized that they're not going to change the date of the Super Bowl because I can't come up with a good idea for a spot. You have to work under heat, under pressure, under deadlines. So my book, Ideas on a Deadline, How to Be Creative When the Clock is Ticking, will help transform your ability to be creative under pressure. And you can get it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but I would encourage you to go to influencelab.com, our nonprofit, and for a donation of any size, we'll send you the book. influencelab.com. We're doing amazing work teaching Christians around the world to use media to share the gospel. And I would love to partner. I think that's the future of missions. And I would love for you to partner with us. If you can give us a regular gift to make that happen, that would be fantastic. But at least give us a donation. We'll send you the book, and hopefully we'll make a great impact out there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.